The golden evening sun stretched long shadows across the manicured lawns as Rajesh Kapoor eased his sleek black sedan through the gates of his hilltop mansion, tires whispering on gravel instead of crunching like they usually did when he arrived late and exhausted from boardrooms. He had cut his Tokyo trip short by a full day, imagining Arian's squeal of delight and maybe a quiet dinner where he could finally ask his son about school without phones buzzing. Rajesh loosened his tie, smiling at the thought of catching them off guard, and slipped through a side entrance he rarely used, the cool marble hallway swallowing the sound of his polished shoes. A soft glow spilled from the living room archway, accompanied by voices, one light and lit, the other small and breathless with giggles and curiosity, tugged him closer until he hovered just outside the half-open door, heart ticking faster than it had during any merger negotiation. Through the narrow gap, he saw Mira, his wife of barely 6 months, kneeling on the thick Persian rug in a simple cotton sari, her dark hair loose for once instead of pinned for the charity galas he dragged her to. Beside her sat Arian, legs crossed, eyes wide as saucers, completely enchanted. In Mira's hands was a thick, battered book with faded gold lettering. Rajesh's breath snagged in his throat, because he knew that cover the way he knew his own reflection. It was Priya's fairy tale collection, the one she read to Arian every night before the accident, the one Rajesh had locked inside a steel drawer the day they lowered her coffin, unable to bear the scent of her vanilla perfume still clinging to the pages. Dust motes danced in the slanting light as Mira turned a page with reverence, her voice rising and falling like music, and the little knight looked up at the dragon and said, "You are big, but my heart is bigger." Arian leaned in, whispering the dragon's reply before Mira could, and she laughed, a sound so warm it cracked something inside Rajesh's chest. He gripped the doorframe, knuckles whitening, because no one, not the maids, not his secretary, certainly not Mira, was supposed to know where that book slept. How had she found it? Was she prying? Replacing? The question swirled like storm clouds. But then Mira brushed a curl from Arian's forehead and said, soft as evening breeze, "Your mom would be so proud of how you imagine these stories, just like she did." And the world tilted. Arian's smile faltered into something tender and ancient, the kind of look that belonged to memories older than his 8 years, and he traced Priya's faded name on the flyleaf with a finger that trembled just enough to notice. Rajesh felt the floor sway beneath him. He had buried that name under layers of work and new cologne and a hurried second marriage meant to plug the hole in their home. Yet here it was, alive in his son's eyes, because a woman he barely knew had unearthed it. A floorboard creaked under his shifting weight. Mira's head snapped up, joy blooming across her face at the sight of him. But Rajesh couldn't move, couldn't speak. Suspended between the past rushing back into future, he suddenly wasn't sure he understood. The fairy tale book, glowing like a fragile lantern between the family he thought he had protected, and the one that was quietly, bravely, stitching itself together without him. The briefcase hit the marble with a dull, guilty thud that echoed like a judge's gavel, freezing the warm scene inside the living room, where lamplight pooled gold over Mira's surprised smile and Arian's sudden leap toward his father. Rajesh's arms opened on instinct, catching the boy mid-flight, but his mind spun backward through locked drawers and midnight grief, the leather handle still warm in his memory from the day he'd sealed Priya's book inside like a dangerous secret. Mira rose slowly, the fairy tale volume cradled against her chest as if it might shatter, her eyes flicking from the fallen case to Rajesh's face and reading the storm there faster than any quarterly report ever could. "You're home early," she said, voice light yet careful, the way one speaks near sleeping tigers, and she closed the cover with a soft snap that sounded too final. Arian buried his face in his father's shirt, mumbling about dragons with emerald scales, but Rajesh barely heard. Every heartbeat asked the same question: how? He had chosen the heaviest drawer, the one behind files marked confidential, the one he never opened because the scent of vanilla and hospital antiseptic still leaked from the spine. Mira stepped closer, barefoot on the rug, and the hallway shadows stretched long behind Rush-like, accusing fingers. "He woke up crying 3 nights in a row," she whispered, glancing at Aryan, now clinging to Rayesh's leg. "Said he couldn't remember her voice anymore, that the pictures in his head were fading." Rayesh's throat tightened. He had bought noise-canceling headphones for business flights, private tutors for perfect grades, a swing set that cost more than most cars, anything to keep the boy busy, quiet, safe from the ache that lived in his own chest. Mira continued, softer still. "I was dusting your studies. I know it's your space hand. The drawer stuck. When I pulled, the key was still in the lock." A flush crept up Rayesh's neck. He had meant to hide the key, had sworn he had, but grief makes cowards of memory. "I only opened it because Aryan stood behind me, eyes huge." Whispering, "That's Mommy's book." The words landed gentle yet precise, like arrows finding the one chink in armor. Aryan tugged Rayesh's sleeve now, holding the book up like an offering. "She reads the dragon part exactly like Mom did, the growl and everything." His voice cracked with pride and something older, a hunger Rajesh had mistaken for shyness. Mira knelt again, smoothing Aryan's hair. "I thought if we kept her stories alive, the nightmares might stay away." Rajesh looked down at the Kobapriya's looping handwriting on the flyleaf, a doodle of a castle in the margin, and felt the steel drawer inside his heart creak open for the first time in years. The hallway clock ticked louder, each second a question mark. Had he locked away his son's healing, along with his own pain? Aryan's small fingers slipped between his, sticky with excitement. "Come sit, Papa. The knight's about to fight." And Rajesh, millionaire, widower, father, let himself be pulled toward the rug, toward the light, toward the terrifying possibility that love might require opening every drawer he had sworn to keep shut forever. Moonlight slipped through half-drawn curtains and pooled silver across the study's oak desk, turning the fairy tale book into a quiet island between Rayesh and Mira, while the house slept under the hush of midnight. Aryan's bedroom door had clicked shut 20 minutes earlier, yet Rayesh's fingers still trembled from smoothing the blanket over his son's shoulders, the same gesture Priya used to make with a song on her lips. Now, the book sat closed, its cracked spine catching the lamplight like an old scar, and Rajesh traced the embossed title with a thumb that suddenly felt too clumsy for a man who signed billion-rupee deals before breakfast. He cleared his throat, the sound too loud in the stillness. "I locked it away because every page plays her voice in my head," he said, voice rough as gravel. "If I let it out, the laughter might fade forever." The confession hung there, naked and small, and he braced for judgment that never came. Mira leaned forward, elbows on knees, the soft cotton of her nightdress brushing the desk's edge. "My mother died when I was 9, she answered, eyes steady on the cover. "I kept her recipe cards, curry stains, and albi, 'cause the smell brought her back. Stories were the same for me, anchors, when the world floated away." Rajesh's breath caught. He had married her for poise and kindness, never guessing she carried her own locked drawers. She reached across the gap, not to touch him but to rest her hand beside the book, close enough to feel warmth. "I only wanted Aryan to hear his mother's heartbeat in the words, not to erase her." The lamp flickered, a brief stutter that made shadows leap, and Rajesh felt the room tilt toward something dangerous and necessary. He lifted the cover slow, reverent hand, the scent of vanilla, and old paper rose like a ghost. Pages rustled, stopping at a corner folded by Priya's careful fingers. In the margin she had scrawled, "Dream bigger than the castle, my brave knight." Rayesh's eyes burned. He had built actual castles of glass and steel, yet missed the one his son needed most. A soft creak at the door snapped the silent Aryan, barefoot in dinosaur pajamas. Hair tousled from restless turning, hovered with the guilty look of a child caught between worlds. "I can't sleep," he whispered, clutching a stuffed dragon. Mira opened an arm without hesitation, and the boy padded across the rug to nestle between them, small body fitting the space like it had always belonged. She began to read where Priya's note left off, the night scaling a mountain of doubt, and Raj found his own voice joining on the dragon's roar, low and rusty, but growing bolder. Arian giggled, then yawned, and for the first time the three of them breathed the same air inside a memory that no longer hurt to touch. When the chapter ended, Rajesh closed the book, but didn't let go. "Tomorrow," he said, surprising himself, "we start something new, more hiding." Mira's smile curved gentle, and Arian's eyes shone with questions yet to be asked. The study no longer a vault, but a doorway, the night stretching wide with the promise of rituals waiting to be born. Dawn crept through the mansion's skylight and painted the attic stairs in shy gold, coaxing Rajesh upward in an old t-shirt and jeans that felt foreign against his skin, the fabric soft where starched collars usually bit. Behind him, Arian bounced on bare feet, clutching the fairy tale book like a passport, while Mira carried a flashlight though, sunlight already spilled across dusty trunks and cobweb veils. The air smelled of cedar and forgotten summers. Rajesh's pulse quickened with every creak of the floorboards, as if the attic itself might slam shut and trap them with ghosts. He lifted the first lid, Priya's handwriting on a yellowed label. Memories and photographs tumbled out like bright confetti. Priya laughing on a picnic blanket. Arian as a toothless baby smearing cake on her nose. Rajesh himself younger, eyes wide with a love he had filed under closed. Arian gasped at each image, fingers reverent, while Mira wiped dust from frames with the hem of her kurta. Her quiet hum the only sound until a cracked laugh escaped Rajesh at the sight of Priya wearing his oversized tie like a superhero cape. Boxers opened wider crayon drawings of three-stick families, pressed flowers between diary pages, a stack of storybooks with dog-eared corners, and the attic filled with overlapping voices, past and present, braided tight. Then Arian's small hand vanished inside a shoebox and emerged, clutching a spiral notebook, cover warped, titles scrawled in purple ink. The boy who painted the sky for Arian. Love, Mom. Pages fluttered to reveal Priya's looping script, halfway through a tale of a child who colored clouds into dragons. The sentence trailing off midair. Silence dropped like a curtain. Rajesh felt the unfinished line hook his heart. Mira knelt, voice steady, yet trembling. "We could finish it together. Your mom started the adventure. We carry the pencil." Arian's eyes turned to twin sons, and Rajesh, who once delegated creativity to marketing teams, found a stubby crayon in his fist before he could think. Downstairs in the sunlit playroom, paper spread across the floor like a battlefield of possibility. Rajesh sketched a lopsided dragon while Arian dictated wing colors. Mira inked dialogue bubbles, their laughter bouncing off walls that had known only conference calls. Days blurred, garden picnics replaced boardrooms. The Millionaire's silhouette bent over storyboards instead of spreadsheets. Neighbors pausing mid-jog to watch him chase Arian through sprinklers, book balanced on his head like a crown. Yet each evening, as the city skyline blinked awake beyond the gates, Rajesh's phone vibrated with urgent emails, a siren song threatening to drag him back to glass towers and lonely victories. One twilight, fireflies stitching the dark, he confessed the fear while pushing Arian on the swing. What if tomorrow steals today? Mira caught the chains, halting the arc. Then we build a ritual strong enough to outrun tomorrow every Friday. No excuses. We meet under the stars and add one page to the sky. Arian whooped, sealing the pact with a sticky high five, and Rajesh felt the promise root deep. A living thing that might just grow taller than any empire he had ever chased. Friday evenings arrived like clockwork, the garden strung with fairy lights that blinked awake as the sky bruised purple, and the Kapoor lawn filled with folding chairs and eager, Children clutching pillows while Aryan cape fashioned from an old curtain stood on a tree stump stage. Voice ringing clear through the finished pages of The Boy Who Painted the Sky. Rajesh watched from the back row. Sleeves rolled, collar open. The same man whose signature once froze, markets now passing juice boxes and wiping sticky fingers. Heart racing each time, Aryan paused for dramatic effect, because every giggle felt like a stock rising in a currency. He had never traded joy. Weeks had slipped into months without a single nightmare clawing Aryan awake. Instead, the boy murmured in his sleep about cloud dragons and rainbow bridges. Dreams. Mira tucked into the community reading club she had launched in the garage. Mismatched rugs, second-hand books, a chalkboard sign that reads stories, welcome everyone. Word spread faster than monsoon rain. Shy toddlers, rowdy teens, even the watchman's daughter showed up, spellbound as Aryan acted out the moment the sky cracked open to reveal a hidden constellation shaped like his mother's smile. Rajesh delegated empires with a calm he once reserved for hostile takeovers. Video calls from the playroom. Emails answered between crayon strokes, yet a quiet fear still pervaded at dusk. What if the old hunger for control returned? What if one urgent crisis yanked him back into the cold orbit of profit and loss? One humid evening, thunder rumbling distant. He slipped into the attic alone, lifted the framed manuscript from its temporary nail, and carried it downstairs, where Mira and Aryan waited beneath the mango tree, sketchbook open to a fresh page. We're not done, he announced, voice thick. And together they added an epilogue, the painter grown tall, passing his brush to a new child, the sky endless. Mira's eyes shone. Aryan whooped and hugged his father's legs. Later, under a storm that never quite broke, Rajesh hung the completed tale beside a brand new photograph, 3 faces glowing in lantern light. Priya's absence, no longer a hole, but a golden thread woven through their smiles. The millionaire stood back, measuring the wall with his gaze. Wealth and laughter lines, and the gentle weight of Mira's hand on his shoulder. In Aryan's sleepy yawn against his chest. Outside, the city hummed, deals waiting. But inside the garden, the story breathed on, page after page. Proof that the greatest fortune is the one built from open hearts and unfinished endings, brave enough to keep writing themselves.